So, how do you come up with great ideas? It's a great question. And it was a question that was asked to me by a friend of mine who's studying design and engineering right now at college. So, what I'm going to do in this video is answer that question the best way that I know how, which is to show you what I do. So, if that sounds of interest, then kick back, relax, and let's get into it. The first thing to note is that there is no creativity without constraint. Constraint is what creates the boundaries of creativity, and without it, you just get an amorphous blob, a mess, a disorganized, untidy assortment of ideas that have no structure, and as a result, make sense to no one. If you think about Twitter, for example, the reason it was such a great platform when it started is because it had the constraint of having a character limit on each tweet. I think it was 140 characters at the time. And as a result, people had to constrain their thoughts and express themselves in a really condensed way. And that was what made it different to the other platforms that were around at the time, Blogger, Tumblr, etc., etc. The best way to have a constraint that defines how you're thinking creatively is to have a problem to solve. But how do you find the right problems? Well, the way that I like to do it is by having a problem book, sort of like this. Got our problems right here. So what I do is I get a notepad. For me personally, I love to use Moleskine because I just love the leather and I love the quality of the product. But you can use anything. You can use scrap paper so long as it's together and filed away. You can use your phone and the notes app in your phone. You can use whatever you like. And whenever I have a personal frustration, or I hear a friend of mine have a frustration, or I just hear in passing in public people complaining about something, I note it down in the problem book and I just let it sit there. Over time, this book gets filled with tons and tons of problems that people have expressed and I've expressed that haven't yet found solutions. It can be something as simple as finding the right outfit for your night out, to something as complicated as reducing wait times for the NHS. Letting your mind subconsciously work on those problems without you thinking about it actively is the absolute key to starting to create different alternatives and ideas in your mind. Then, at intervals, look over the product book. And so we're going to do that right now. So here are a couple of examples of entries that I've got in my problem book that I'm just going to use to illustrate this. The gut health crisis and pills for breakfast. So on social media and in daily life, I have supplements more often than cereal at this point. It's vitamin D, probiotics, magnesium, etc., etc. And yet, still, we've been programmed to think that breakfast is a meal that we're supposed to have, and breakfast ends up just being heaps of sugar. So we end up having, our cereal or our toast, and then having an assortment of different pills, basically, to get our nutrition. It doesn't seem to make sense. It would seem to make sense that that process should be simpler, that they should be unified in one, which opens up possibilities and opportunities in the breakfast cereal category. Just an idea there. Another one. Food waste in local postcodes. So restaurants have a ton of food left over from each night that they throw away, and yet the homeless don't have enough food to eat. How come? That seems like an asymmetry. It seems like there is a mismatch between the amount of food that's being produced and the supply of that food to people who actually need it. Now, I'm sure that there are tons of solutions to this problem, but it's a problem that I haven't really spoken to many people about, and I'm sure when you think about it more and more often and more deeply, that there will be creative solutions that can come up that can help with those problems. And then the third problem, third spaces and the misallocation of clubs. So it feels increasingly like there is a need for third spaces, spaces that are not the bar, not the club, and they're not the office. They are external spaces where people can gather together in community over shared interests, but aren't there for massively productive activities. This can be the chess club, it can be the running club, it can be the book club. There are tons of workshops that are going on as well. So the question then becomes, what other clubs do we need and how can we best create them? So when you then had a brainstorm around how to solve those problems, you can then start to mix and match the solutions to those problems. You can see that, for example, there's an infrastructure problem with the misallocation of food and supply, and the supply of food with those who really need it. And you can say, actually, maybe that idea also applies to the misallocation of spaces between bars, clubs, and other spaces, and people who need them for clubs and activities. You could then take the core idea of creating an infrastructure for those restaurants that have extra supply and partnering it with those people who have demand for food, and you can apply the same principles to the problem of a misallocation of spaces and say, here are these restaurants, for example, that have additional supply of space, and here are these people who have additional demand of activities, and how can you create an infrastructure that helps solve that problem? And that's how you can go from having a broad spread of problems and finding a solution to one problem over here, and then taking that core idea and applying it to something completely different. And as a result, that is what we call creative thinking, right? Creative thinking is really nothing more than connecting things and connecting ideas and solutions that are not typically connected. That's really what it is. And so it's my hope that this process will encourage us to look for problems, both large and small, and that it trains us to improve our problem-solving muscles creatively. It will then increase and improve our sense of lateral thinking, and the combination of all of those things is what we call creativity. Over time, that sense of creativity and those ideas will stack up, and they'll start to create little tasks. Those tasks will become larger projects. Those projects will become larger products, and those products will become companies. And that is how you go from the small seed of simply listing simple observations around you all the way up to having a big creative idea. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments, and also let me know if you have any creative hacks that you use as well, and if you have any topics that you want me to talk about in future videos. This has been awesome, once again, checking out, and I will see you guys soon. Peace.